Well, tonight we have on our panel, beginning with Mayor Fred Butler, who was elected as mayor in 2013 and has served the citizens of Issaquah since 1999 when he became a member of our city council. Prior to his work for Issaquah, Mayor Butler served in the Army Corps of Engineers for 26 years and spent part of his time in the Middle East African district. He has visited our sister city, Chefchaouen, Morocco. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Adil A. Hamid taught at the University of Washington at the Middle East Center at the Jackson School of International Studies and the Department of Near Eastern Languages and Civilization from 2009 to 2013. He directed the University of Washington Honors Study Abroad program in Morocco with the theme of literature and music. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Othman Ramouni leads the Issaquah Chefchaouen Sister Program and is a past delegate. He is a native of Casablanca, Morocco, and an Issaquah resident. In his professional life, Mr. Ramouni is a technology entrepreneur. He will be leading a workshop at the University of Washington's Department of Communications School of Journalism next month. Welcome. And I appreciate the fact that you two could dress comfortably. Yeah, and Mayor, you look great.
We received the email from the mayor saying that we should dress this way, so
Perfect.
that was the trick.
Apparently I was left off in that one. So, why we're having this panel? It's to inform and exchange ideas in advance of the delegation visit, ultimately resulting in dynamic learning experience for all parties involved. The University House is helping by hosting delegates, and University House residents are contributing to the greater cultural understanding because delegates visit local schools, meet citizens, and learn about our culture. So for you, the audience tonight, just listen, learn, enjoy, and if you have an idea, write it down for a question and put it in the box, okay? So, let's get started. Mayor Butler, from the city's perspective, why is the Sister City program valuable to the citizens of Issaquah?
Well, that really is a great question. Issaquah is a very diverse city as it is. As you travel around our city, do your shopping, you see many different cultures represented. But it's very, very difficult to establish a relationship with them. So it's important because when we have visitors from our sister city, they spend a lot of time with our students, with our citizens, and one of the reasons we invite them during Salmon Days is the 175,000 or so non-Issaquah residents who come to our community also. So we're known as a special place, a place where people care. And by making our visitors from our sister city, whether they are the artists that come and visit, or whether it's the student exchange students that come, they interact in a very close and personal way. And through those conversations and those interactions, you develop an appreciation and an understanding of what another culture really is all about, and it gives you an opportunity to interact with them in a meaningful way.
That's great, thank you. Othman, can you tell me from personal experience why the Sister City Exchange is valuable to our community?
Sure, so I've had the chance to participate in different programs over the years with the Sister City Commission. And for me, it's all about the personal stories. It's about having two individuals who would otherwise never meet in this life, right? They live in different communities, they have different interests. But coming together, sitting down, sharing a meal, asking questions, we quickly realize that we share so many things in common. The conversations evolve in so many directions. I can give a couple of examples. Last year, for example, we had a singer from Morocco, and after delicious dinner at Tina's house, we were sitting around with a couple of guitars. And here you had an artist from Morocco, and you had Tina's neighbor with the guitar, and they were singing Let It Be together. happy to show you the video afterwards. But it's all about this personal and kind of connections between individuals that just make this whole relationship worth it. And I think that over the years, we've been seeing so many experiences like this. And hopefully all of you will get to meet our artist who's here, as well as some other folks that we're expecting later this week. And it's a great way to learn about others and get to see the world through someone else's eyes.
One thing, I think there are probably a couple of things. The first one would be open-mindedness. I think when you intend to learn about a new culture, you must be releasing yourself from all the preconceived ideas about that particular culture, whatever you have learned before. I think it would make sense to just wipe that and then open your heart to this new culture you're trying to learn. And in the process, you will get shocked. There are a lot of things that would just seem absurd to you. But I think that what leads me to the second thing is perseverance. You have to insist when you hit the wall and try to understand that particular cultural aspect that you could not comprehend when it was first introduced to you. And we get through these experiences like these when we go visit a new country, not even in the North Africa or the Middle East, but even if it's a European. If you go to France, I'm sure you will get shocked how the definition of freedom of speech probably is quite different from how we conceive freedom of speech in the United States of America. So number one would be open-mindedness and insist, perseverance.
That's great, thank you. So let's talk about history a little bit. Mr. Hamid, Morocco has a long and deep history. It's a crossroads in many ways. Can you share some insights about its role and why a city like Chefchaouen is such a great sister city to Issaquah?
Great question, thank you. A year after the United States declared its independence, and that was 1776, in Morocco, 1777, the Sultan at the time, his name was Mohammed III, also referred to as Sidi Mohammed ibn Abdullah. Ironically, it's the name of the university I went to in Fez, in Morocco, named Sidi Mohammed ibn Abdullah. This Sultan recognized the United States as an independent state. So Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States as an independent state, as well as the 13 colonies during the reign of George III, I think, in Britain. And so that's a really interesting thing that shocks a lot of people when we tell them about it. The other thing is, we know throughout the history of Morocco that it has been and is currently still a crossroad between cultures and civilizations. The Phoenicians, the Carthaginians, the Amazigh people, the native people of Morocco, the Arabs when they came in the 7th century and brought Islam, the various cultures and religions, Muslims, Christians, and Jews who lived side by side even after the expulsion from Spain, in South Spain in the 15th century. So it has this role of being in the crossroad culturally. Why it makes sense for the city of Issaquah to have a sister program, sistership program or relationship with the city of Chefchaouen because of a few similarities, such as, for instance, the two towns, their proximity to mountains, they attract nature lovers, but I think the most important thing and what keeps the relationship really, how shall I say, warm and active and keeps this interest is stemming from the differences, not from the similarities as much. I think if you look at Morocco, the culture from Chefchaouen and Mayor Butler has been there, all the shocking cultural aspects that you're exposed to keeps it really interesting, keeps your interest in trying to learn about these differences, especially in light of the recent events in the Middle East, as you may know.
Thank you. Ahmed, what do you think is most different about Moroccan culture today and how Moroccans see themselves in an ever-evolving and often volatile Middle East?
That's a multi-dimensional question.
Yes.
So let's see where I start. So I guess to extend on the point Mr. Adil was making is, in a lot of ways, Moroccans today have been shaped by so many waves of cultures over the centuries, right? And if you actually just look at the last century, Morocco was under French rule, well, half French, half Spanish rule for so many centuries. Then it got its independence after World War II, and then at that point, there were so many forces internally that have kind of shaped the culture today. But I'll say that the internet and access to information has created this whole new wave that's been shaping society with a different dimension. Because today, well, you can find any information you want within seconds, right? And so what we're seeing in society today is more and more people who otherwise wouldn't have access to certain kinds of information can actually have access to it. So I will say that it has been shaped by that access to information in a lot of ways, and both from a TV perspective. And so as you drive around in Morocco, you'll see a lot of satellites. And so what you have, it's easy to turn around and connect to your channel. And one of the advantages of having been part of France as a colony and Spain is lots of people speak other languages. And so it's easy to actually get information about similar conflicts, for example, and be able to turn to Al Jazeera and hear it in Arabic, and then turn the satellite around and see what the French have to say about it, or what the Spanish have to say about it. So I think that openness, and then once the news is over, you can get online and see some other news that you can easily translate in a language you might not speak. And so I think that openness has shaped, especially the younger generation, in a whole new way. And so I'll say that it really differs in many ways. And so Morocco, it's its own kind of culture in a way because of also its geographical location. And so I'll say that Moroccans look towards the North Africa and the Middle East, and they see other people like them who speak Arabic, who share certain similar values, who share similar religion. But then Spain is right across the water. It's like you're sitting in downtown Seattle and you're looking at Bainbridge Island. And so Spain is right there, Europe is right there. So in a lot of ways, over the years, people have been turned to Europe in many ways, both from a kind of interest perspective because there are better economical prospects over there, but also culturally over the years. And so Moroccans are these complex cultural human beings, if I may, who have really absorbed all these cultural aspects and kind of shaped their own personality. So that would be for the first part. For the second part, as you think about what's happening in the Middle East, I've actually had the chance to travel to Iraq last year. I got to go over there and work with local technology entrepreneurs. And what I've seen is kind of similarities. I get back to that point. Or at the end of the day, most people, whether they're in Morocco, whether they're here in Issaquah, or they're in Baghdad, are just trying to put food on the table, keep a roof on top of their heads, and you talk to them about their day, and they talk about their kids and school and just the usual things. Yes, we can turn to the media and look at all the conflicts that are happening and all the complexities that are happening in this complex world, but at the end of the day, we're all the same.
Yeah.
That's a great observation. First, to recognize the U.S. As a sovereign country. Today, what do you think in general of the view of the relationship for most Moroccans with the U.S.? And I'll ask that of you, Othman.
I love to tell stories, so I'm going to tell a story. So I remember sitting with my parents. This was in the late 90s. And at that time, I didn't speak much English. And the Jay Leno show was on. And I remember at the time, my dad and my brother were just laughing. And I was just sitting there, what is so funny? I can't understand it. But then I'll turn the channel and Jerry Springer would be on. And that I could understand now. But the reason I mention these examples is because media shapes our kind of perspective of the world in so many ways. And so when you ask a lot of people, their perspective of America has been shaped by the movies, by the culture. I would actually encourage you to get online and listen to Moroccan radio. You can listen to any radio in the world today. And actually what you'll hear is an interesting thing. And the ratio of songs that are in English versus in Arabic versus in Spanish or French. And what you'll notice is over a third of the songs are in English. And so there is a big influence that the US have in the world. and that they have in Morocco. But in the same way, going back to the other points, how people see the world, people also see the world as this political powerhouse. And so when there are things happening in the Middle East or North Africa, it's all, they're always looking at what the US is doing. And so it's like anything political, right? One half is going to agree, the other half is going to disagree, and so everyone has their perspective or their point of view on foreign affairs, etc. But I would say that a lot of people are really just, they go to McDonald's and they sip Starbucks. Yeah, this is, all of these chains are in Morocco, so. And it costs 10 times as much as the local coffee shop, yet there is a long line. Yeah. Anyway, that's for a different story. But.
That's a great thing. It's a good story. Let's talk about more recent history. Mayor Butler, how has this exchange program historically served us, and where do you see it going in the future from the city's point of view?
I think, I know that it served us very, very well. This afternoon, I reviewed a list of all of the things that have been done since we established our sister city relationship. High school students practicing their French on the web between Issaquah High School and Chefchaouen. Fifth grade class making individual presents from here in Issaquah that a delegation took over there and presented to a fifth grade class in Chefchaouen. Delivering computers to an elementary school to establish a computer lab. A photography contest where photos were taken in Chefchaouen and sent via email, and photos taken here sent to Chefchaouen so that we could share in a bit of their culture and what they were doing. And then student and teacher exchanges. And here this evening, we've got a young lady who was a part of that exchange student who traveled to Chefchaouen, and about 6 years ago, I believe, and she still is in contact with the family and the friends that she made there. So how does that benefit our community? In ways that probably you could never remember. And that doesn't count the artists that come here and go into all of our schools and demonstrate art, music, and wood and metalworks and things like that, that our students would never have the opportunity. And so why do they really go into our schools? Well, one of the reasons is they get so enthused that they want to bring their parents to Salmon Days to visit the Moroccan tent, the Moroccan exhibits, and introduce their parents to those artists. And so those friendships, those interactions do an awful lot to promoting a culture of understanding and, I believe, in the end, peace. Because when you establish a relationship, a personal relationship with someone, you're establishing a very special bond.
Great, thank you. This is for all of you. So, where do these exchanges produce the greatest benefit? For example, in schools, nonprofits, fostering learning with the arts, community, business.
Well, I can answer that. That's a pretty simple answer. All of those, and probably a few more that you didn't mention, Joe, because when the whole community is involved in these activities, both in Chefchaouen and here in Issaquah, opportunities, understanding generates ideas. And from ideas, that touches on each and every one of the categories that you mentioned. But if I had to pick one, I would say it's the student interactions and the ones that they share with their parents and the good stories that come out of that.
I'll probably follow up on that. I think, as Mayor Butler said, I think it's all the community benefits from programs like these. And if just 0.5% of the participants in Salmon Days, which is 150,000, I believe, around 175. So that 0.5% of the participants attend the Moroccan tent, that's over 7,000 people visiting the tent and just being exposed. Even if they spend 5 minutes there, that's a lot of exposure that they would not get otherwise.
That's great.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I mean, I agree with everything that was said. I was just gonna add one more dimension. When we were in Chefchaouen last year, one of the kind of magical thing is seeing the network effect of having just one person be here, or just one person travel, where someone came to us and recognized a couple of folks and said, I know you from Facebook. My sister, you have a picture with my sister, no longer lives in Chefchaouen, but I've seen you before, and I'm not sure if Lisa is around, but yeah, Lisa basically had a picture with her sister, but then she recognized her from Facebook and said, yes, I know you. And so here's how, you know, it's not just that one person who's impacted, but many others in the community who benefit from that relationship.
That's great. Mayor Butler, do exchanges like the Sister City one help us gain recognition with the state or federal governments?
Well, now that is a tough question, but I would say this. Shortly after we established our sister city relationship with Chefchaouen, the Washington Sister Cities organization decided to have their statewide conference at Tibbetts Creek Manor in Issaquah. So that certainly was a recognition, I believe, that we were doing something right, and those were sister cities from across the state of, the entire state. At the federal level, the Sister City program was established during President Eisenhower's presidency for a simple reason. He felt that people-to-people exchanges were more effective than exchanges between diplomats and others, and that you needed to tackle the relationship at the highest and at the lowest level. And I believe history has borne us out that that's really the way that you, as I've said before, establish the meaningful relationships. And while we were in Chefchaouen to sign the memorandum of agreement with the Chefchaouen City Council, at the same time we were there, the State Department, through one of their programs, sent some professional basketball players who were making the rounds. And again, this just demonstrates that through activities that are non-political is where you get your best results. So the answer to those questions, I think, that has been a real source of pride for our citizens and our community to have the close sister city relationship that we have with Chefchaouen, and it's been recognized.
That's great. Okay, now I know all of us here want to be great hosts to the delegation while they're here at Issaquah. So, Othman, can you share 3 simple words with us that we should learn to greet and welcome the delegates who stay here?
Is everyone ready? All right, let's start with one that you're going to need in about 20 seconds, okay? And the word is marhaban, okay? So let's say it after me. Marhaban. Okay, let's do it one more time. Marhaban. Okay? Now I want you to turn around. There's a gentleman standing right there. He's holding his phone, and his name is Ali. So he just flew across the world. I think his flight was about 16 hours with the stop. And he arrived here without his luggage. If anyone has an extra toothbrush, no, I'm wrong. So let's turn around and say marhaban. Okay, everyone is ready? 1, 2, 3. Marhaban. Okay, great. So that's the second word we're gonna learn. Okay, that's thank you. Okay, so the word thank you is shukran. Okay, so let's do it again together. Shukran. Okay, one more time. Shukran. Very good. Great. What other word would you like to learn? Any suggestions?
What do those words mean?
So shukran means thank you. Marhaban means welcome. Okay? Any other word you'd like to learn? I can't hear you. Please. Al-fak. Okay? You guys want to do it together? Al-fak. Okay? So what I will do after this is I will write them down and I'll keep them up front so you can take a look at it then. Okay?
Ali, I would invite you up here, but I can see your videotaping, so I don't want to interrupt you. Mr. A. Hamid, are there any customs that we should be sensitive to or simply aware of in the Moroccan culture?
No hugging. Especially, well, between male and female. So if, even though the relationship is really close between you and someone you've met or you've spent a lot of time with, if it's not a relative, then I would not recommend hugging. On the other hand, hugging between man and man is common. Actually, you can even kiss here, and it's okay. And you can actually walk down the street holding hands, that's also okay, between a woman and a woman and a man and a man. But it's not accepted between males and females.
Very interesting, thank you.
Can I throw something in there?
Sure.
All right, so that's why I kind of bring in my younger age. And I will say that I actually agree with that as a best practice. But I will say I grew up in an environment that is, I've had a very Western lifestyle living in Morocco. And so in a lot of ways, we actually kiss between men, I guess teenagers in that sense of, between boys and girls. And actually it's more, you actually kiss in the cheek in the same way the French culture might do it. And so that's why I go back to, depending on where you are, also the best practice is still that. But you'll see, that people who know each other and people who are close together are, they will hold hands, hug, kiss, etc. And so yes, that's still the best practice, but at the same time, especially when you're in urban settings, you'll see lots more kind of common Western behaviors and patterns, in terms of, between two people.
That's great. Mayor Butler, is there one thing in particular that you learned during your visit to Chefchaouen that sticks with you?
Yes.
Thank you for that.
The one thing I think I learned is they are no different than we are. Families are important. And I heard it earlier that they worry and are concerned about the same things that we are. Families, the love of their children, the protection of their families, all of these kinds of things. When you look at that and you come back here and you look at our own culture and what you see, it's pretty much exactly the same thing. And so I did learn one other thing. I did learn over and over and over again that Morocco was the first country to recognize the United States and their freedom. And they are fiercely proud of that fact, and just about every new Moroccan I met reminded me of that. Right, Tina?
That's great. Now we have some questions from the audience here, and here's the first one from Mary Lou Enlow. And this is for either of you gentlemen that might like to answer this. How is the Moroccan culture different from Algerian or Tunisian cultures, and what caused those differences?
I think most differences are mostly political, but not at the level of society and culture. I think probably what would influence it, if existed, these different cultural differences would be stemming probably from the fabric of the society. So Morocco, for instance, there are approximately 50 to 60% of the population are not actually Arab. They're the natives, the commonly known as the Berbers or the Amazigh. In Algeria, the numbers that have been quoted was 25% of the population. I think there's less than 10 in Tunisia. So that would probably affect how the culture have developed in the past few centuries. I think if you look at the politics, especially between Algeria and Morocco, the gap is huge. But when you talk to the people, I mean, heck, if you go to Oujda, which is in the east, the extreme east of Morocco, and Tlemcen, you have two people from these two different cities talking to each other. I wouldn't know if whether they're from Morocco or Algeria. That's how close the culture is.
What is the Moroccan language? Arabic, and is it Arabic? And what is the main religion?
I can take that on. So the main language is Arabic, but here's the interesting part. If I was actually to be speaking to a fellow Moroccan, and we had someone else from Egypt maybe, they might pick up about 30 or 40% of it. That's because the language has had so much influence, like the spoken language has had so much influence over the years because of other languages that are commonly spoken by Moroccans, but also just the years of just kind of being apart from having actually like boundaries around the flow of people. With that being said, we all speak Arabic and we can all write Arabic. And so it's hard to give a comparison to like English in that way, but the dialect that we speak is actually a Moroccan version of Arabic. But at the same time, as was mentioned before, there is a large portion of the population that's Berber, and Berbers speak a different language. Additionally, many people, the majority of people speak a second language. They will either speak French or Spanish. On top of that, a lot of people learn English. So let me give you an example to kind of explain the language aspect. So at 6 o'clock, you might have the news in Amazigh. At 7, you might be in French. At 8:30, you might be in Arabic. And then there will be another kind of news around 11 o'clock. And so that kind of speaks to the languages part. So, but I will say the official language is Arabic. Actually, it's also Amazigh since a few years ago. To answer the question around the religion, the majority of the population is Muslim, and so 99% plus is, but there is a decent size Jewish and Christian population, mostly in the urban cities, mostly in Rabat, Casablanca, and I'll say, you probably know some more statistics, but I believe that Morocco is kind of one of the top countries in the Middle East and North Africa with the biggest community of Christian and Jewish folks, especially Spanish, French people living in Morocco.
That's actually that's a great question, and it's a great explanation. That's a course, that's a book that you just answering that question is a book of 5 or 6 volumes, and the answer is it depends who you ask. People tend to say that they speak Arabic, but as Otman just explained, it's not the standard Arabic that you would hear in Al Jazeera, for instance. It's a version of it that has been influenced by a lot of other languages. We refer to it as Moroccan Arabic. It has its own name. We call it Darija. But it has Amazigh, it has French in it, it has Spanish in it, it has a mix of languages. It's almost like a language that was developed to create or to facilitate communications between different language groups within the community. It's like a pidgin developing into a Creole and then into a language kind of process.
Thank you. Yes?
How does the role of women differ from the United States to Morocco?
That's another book.
Maybe I'll start, and I'm sure you'll help complement it, give you more time to think about it. So I'll say that in a lot of ways. So if I take an example of my family, for example. The majority of the women in my family have been in the workforce for a long time. Schools that I've been to have been 50% women, 50% men. I guess boys and girls. And so you have two pieces to the answer. The question is what's happening in urban settings and what's happening in kind of the countryside. And I'll say it will be a similar pattern to what has happened in many places, including in the United States. If you just go back not too long ago, women couldn't vote in this country. If you go not too long ago, it took a movement and it took years and years for things to shift. And so in a similar way, Morocco and many countries, I'll say all over the world, whether it's in South America, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Central Africa or Asia, you have a similar pattern where our societies all over the world have been male-dominated for a long time. And it really takes years, and it takes the right people within to drive that change. And I'll say that over the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, Morocco has been going that direction around creating equal opportunities between men and women. But I'll say it still has a lot of work to do. And so do lots of other countries in the area.
Well said, I don't have anything to add.
You can't dodge a question like that.
Do we have any
Does
other
that help answer your
questions?
question?
Those were short answers.
Yes.
We're going to be around and happy to chat in more details.
What is the population of Chefchaouen?
What's the population of Chefchaouen?
Just approximately.
Oh, let me pull up my phone and check it. So we know, let me ask you this. What is the population of Issaquah?
33,167 as of 6 o'clock this morning.
So one of the main reasons for Chefchaouen and Issaquah to have a sister relationship is they share many things in common. And so their population size weren't that far apart. So Chefchaouen is a bit bigger. I think they're around 50,000 or 40,000. So we'll have to double check on that. But that's about what they're like.
35.
Fantastic. So yes, thank you.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about the gate that you gave us, and what did we give you guys? What did Issaquah give Chefchaouen? I'm curious. Did salmon? I don't know.
Yes, we did. Actually, it was a beautiful piece of art in the form of a salmon that I believe is hung in their city hall in Chefchaouen.
So but did you talk about the gate that we got?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Actually, the gate that's sitting right in front of City Hall
Yeah.
is exactly the same door that's actually in the entrance of the city. And it was actually part of the wall that was surrounding the city when it had actually a wall surrounding it. I guess, to give maybe another example, in the local school in Chefchaouen, that's like the main high school right at the heart of the city, there are 2 trees that were actually planted by a delegation that went back, I believe, in 2007. And last time we went there, we actually took pictures next to the tree that was planted by the Issaquah delegation while they were there. And so, we can talk about this. There are symbols to me. For me, what's been given are all those strong relationships that have been built over the years, and just people sitting around and saying, "Oh, let's look at those pictures. Remember that evening when we were sitting in that person's home in Issaquah, and we had that meal, and we played that song together." So I think those are the meaningful things that can stay around, and ultimately it's those memories that can build that relationship.
Any others?
Just as a follow-up, if the major religion is Muslim, will we be offensive serving champagne, which I understand is not to be drunk in Muslim countries?
That's actually a great question. Let's look at, I'm going to give examples. Actually, if you look at what the law says and what's practiced, do I need to say anything more? So, ultimately, I believe, so the alcohol is served in Morocco. The actual law is that it shouldn't be served to Muslims. However, there are lots of clubs around, and there are things that are not practiced. So it's a complicated answer that I can give you. But ultimately, I believe that most people will be okay, given that it's ultimately for this audience. Now, if this was a party that was hosted in Chefchaouen, there might be it would be a different kind of setting, I may say. I'm sure you have a better
Yeah,
answer.
that's actually a great question, but I'm just going to give you an example, a really good example. Moroccan wine produced in the city of Meknes is seen in France as one of the best wines. Actually, even heard about it in a song. I think it's called Boulawan. So there's a huge local wine production in the country. Now, if you go, I'm not sure about Chefchaouen, but if you go to my town where I was when I was raised in Fez, there are a number of bars that are supposed to be for foreigners. But if you walk in, you won't see any. So yeah, again, so there's a difference between the law and how it's being practiced. But again, yes, I absolutely agree that if it was this event was hosted by the Moroccan counterpart, it would have been slightly different, and the expectations also are different as well.
Yes?
Would you compare the summer climates of Morocco and Western Washington? Temperature differences? what
Does
have
it get
precipitation?
Does it get 116, 118 degrees? Again, it depends.
Yes.
If you are in Casablanca, for instance, if you are in Chefchaouen, I think it's pretty warm in the summer, but it's also by the proximity to mountains, so it's cooler. If you are in the desert in the south, if you are in a town called Merzouga, it gets 116 degrees easily. In Fez, where I came from, in the summer, 118 degrees is no big deal. But if just 40 kilometers outside of Fez, it rains in the summer. That's where a little town called Ifran, that's where the University of Issaquah is located, and the climate is like here in the summer. So there's that geographic diversity, and depends.
Yeah, so I'm not going to answer the temperature question, but I'll tell a story. And the story is that I actually learned how to ski in Morocco, but I've never seen the desert while in Morocco. Actually, I had to move to the US, and then people asked me, how is the desert? I said, well, okay, next time I go, I'm actually going to go see the desert. So I did. So there is just a lot of diversity of climates and kind of environments, and that it's, you want mountains, there are mountains. You want desert, there is desert. And so in that sense, Chefchaouen also has, a lot of similarities with Issaquah in the sense that it doesn't get too cold, yet it doesn't get too hot because of the mountains around and the proximity to the water. But as was mentioned, there are places where it gets pretty hot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, right here.
How about the Sunni Shia divide? Does that affect your country a lot?
Go for it.
Or
That's
to
a
what
great question.
degree does it affect your country?
Morocco is mostly Sunni. And I say mostly, I've never heard of anyone, I lived in Morocco for 35 years, and I've never heard of anyone being other than Sunni. Now I've heard in recent accounts that there were a few who are Shi'i, but I don't have the statistics to support that.
Yeah, that's from what I know as well. It's 99.9% Sunni, so it's a non-issue within society. As compared to places like Iraq, where the divide is much bigger, and so it creates political forces and all kinds of complexities.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, Fred has, right?
There was a question earlier about the view of women, and let me just point out that when we signed the memorandum of agreement, the delegation that went to Morocco was headed up by Mayor Eva Freisinger, who did a superb job and was shown great respect for herself and her position. And when we had a delegation come to the United States a number of years later, they brought with them a member of their city council who was a woman. And so your comments about things are slow to change, but the current King of Morocco has placed a high priority of spearheading that effort and has even established quotas for women in various political and government positions and organizations.
If I may add one point, actually, last year we had 2 artists coming from Morocco. One of them was a woman, one of them was a man. So we've got some pictures and we're happy to show you some of those.
What is the relationship between Morocco and Israel?
So talking about the hard questions, this is great. So, I mean, as you know, there are complex geopolitical issues in the area. If you look at the polls, most countries in the area are very pro-Palestinian in the way that, you know, they relate to them, they share language, they share religion, they share certain aspects. So when you look at the polls, many people support that. I went to a high school. See, the microphone detects tricky questions. Shuts down. Maybe I was about to say something that I shouldn't say. No. But to also give you an example, I actually attended a high school, and across the street from my high school was a Jewish high school. And so it's one thing to see what's political and, you know, how certain political issues are gonna, where people are gonna perceive them a certain way and have a certain personal opinion about it. But in Morocco and in Casablanca, where I grew up, there is a decent sized Jewish community, and a lot of those have connections with Israel, and so a lot of them will travel back and forth. And so it is a complex political question, but at the same time, and a lot of people, as I mentioned, relate to Palestinian, and so I will say they tend to be mostly pro-Palestinian in that sense. But I will say that, you know, when you ask a lot of people, what they would love to see is just everyone being happy and living in harmony and ensuring that everyone, you know, has a, you know, holds hand and figures out their differences.
It is actually free and is mandatory for kids under the age of 15. And the question is what quality of education is offered. Elementary school is free up through university. So you go to university, you don't have to pay. They actually give you a stipend. It's really not a lot of money, but they give you a stipend for students who can't afford to go to college.
You mentioned the important aspect, and it's around the quality. Unfortunately, what you'll see is that many people will end up, people who can afford it would rather send their kids to private school, just because the quality is much higher. And if you look at the correlation between getting a great job and the kind of education you get, going to private school gives you a much higher probability of getting a great job than going to public school. And so unfortunately, the economical status of your family might dictate how well of a job you might get at the end of that schooling system.
I have 2 kids in college, and I can tell you free sounds really good. We have time, I think, for one more question. I saw your hand up over here.
I was wondering how it's been for you guys since leaving Morocco, when you go back there, how that experience has been different from growing up there, and how it feels to be a part of the Moroccan diaspora, and if you're treated differently at home now, or
Going back, actually, the very first time I came here was in 2009, and I spent 6 months here in the U.S. and I went back to visit my family, and it was kind of was an eye opener to just being away for 6 months to go back and say, really, we do things that way? I wasn't able to cross the street. And I'm not joking. I was not able to cross. I just stood, just like, you know, drivers do here, just, you know, stop for you, but they won't. But so I actually watched a little kid crossing the street and reminded me, okay, that's how you're supposed to do it. You should cross and stop halfway before you continue. So it's really an eye opener, and I think most people who spent a lot of time abroad kind of reflect on how things are done. What you take for granted kind of becomes questionable, and I'm sure Mr. Butler had the same situation, being living in the outside of the United States for a while, coming back. Everything seems, or most things seem absurd.
I guess I could broaden my perspective. So I've been living in the US for over 14 years, and I look at certain things that like anywhere you go. I mean, I've had the chance to travel to many countries, and you always find things that oh my God, I just love that aspect about this culture of this place. Other aspect, you're like, well, what happened to crossing the street or other things. So anywhere you travel, there are places you live. There are things that you really love and things that are like, well, I'd rather have it be elsewhere. Be different, and the grass always looks green on the other side. And so when you talk to people there, they're like, well, I'd love to go to America, and for this or that. And at the same time, you might talk to people, oh my God, Morocco sounds so exotic, and I'd love to go there. And so people are always looking at other places, and I think that the key is to say, well, there are things that I love here, and there are things that I love there, and ultimately having the opportunity to go back and forth and visit and just get the best of both worlds is just great. So that's what I enjoy doing.
Well, I've enjoyed every minute of this, and Mr. Aid Hamid, Mr. Ramouni, and Mayor Butler, we thank all of you for taking time to visit with us tonight, and let's give them a big round of applause.
We want to thank everyone for coming out tonight.